Good morning, everyone. My name is Councillor Simon Smith, and I'm the chair of this committee. I would like to welcome you to the Joint Development Control Committee meeting taking place at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 25th of January 2023. Other members of the committee are Councillors Carling. If you'd like to, yep, thank you. Pora.
Present, Chair.
Present, yeah. Thornborough.
Present, Chair.
Bradman.
Good morning, Chair.
Morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Chair. Present, Chair.
Councillor Scott, Councillor Garvey and Councillor Gawthorpe Wood are alternates, so hello.
Hello.
Thank you. The officers permanently at the table for this meeting are Strategic Sites Delivery Manager Philippa Kelly, Legal Advisor Keith Barber, Committee Manager James Goddard, and Producer Claire. So, housekeeping.
Apologies, Chair. Councillor Flaubert is delayed on the bus, but should be here in about 3 minutes.
Okay, we'll welcome her when she arrives. Copies of the agenda can be found on the City Council's website under committee meetings, minutes and agendas. Please try and refer to page and paragraph numbers within the agenda if you're referring to a specific paragraph or plan. Why am I reading this? It gets relevant now. Please ensure that you have switched off or silenced any other devices you have so that you do not interrupt proceedings. When you're invited to address the meeting, please make sure your microphone is switched on. When you finish addressing the meeting, please turn off your microphone immediately. Please speak slowly and clearly, and please do not talk over or interrupt anyone. Please, those present in the council chamber, note that everything on your desk, including your laptop screen, may be broadcast at some point. The camera follows the microphone being switched on, so councillors and officers are requested to wait a couple of seconds before speaking to allow the camera to catch up. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak. Please can those participating in the meeting via Teams indicate that you wish to speak via the chat column or raised hand option. Please do not use the chat column for any other purpose. The meeting chat is neither confidential nor private and can be subject to an FOI GDPR request. Make sure that your device is fully charged and that you switch your microphone off unless you're invited to speak. Please can meeting participants keep their microphone and cameras turned off until we come to the developer briefing you will be speaking at. There are no planning applications being presented at committee today. The process for the pre-application developer briefing will be as follows. The developer team will present the proposals in presentation of no more than 20 minutes. At the end of the developer presentation, there will be up to 25 minutes for members to ask questions about the scheme as presented. So agenda item 2, please could councillors advise if they have any declarations of interest. So move on to...
I'm a member of Milton Parish Council who have council formally, I think, has sent in a comment on the Vitrum building, but I did not contribute to that comment and I come to this matter afresh.
Councillor Flaubert is present. Can you just acknowledge that, please, Councillor Flaubert? Just say hello. Thank you. So moved on then to agenda item 3. This is the pre-application developer briefing for the Vitrum building, St John's Innovation Park, Cowley Road, Cambridgeshire, CB40WS. Demolition of the existing building on site and the redevelopment of the site to provide a new ground floor plus 4-storey commercial building for life sciences research and development uses use class EG2, along with associated ancillary facilities. Please can the developer introduce themselves and their colleagues assisting with the presentation. I will invite councillors to ask questions once the presentation has finished. So you have 20 minutes.
Sorry, a few technical issues. Can I just ask the team to introduce ourselves? So my name's Emma Woods. I'm a director at Sphere 25 Planning Consultancy, and we're acting on behalf of Breakthrough Properties, who are the applicants.
Hi everyone. Richard Turner from Breakthrough Properties. Again, the applicant working with Adam and the team, Senior Project Manager. And I'll pass over to Kim Graham.
I'm Kim Graham from Fielden and Mawson. We're architects working in collaboration with Henning Larsen, who has joined us, our teams, and who are the design architects.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you for taking the time to have us on your agenda this morning at the pre-application stage of this site. So the site is located within North East Cambridge, within the existing St John's Innovation Park, adjacent to the A14 and the Jane Coston Bridge. As you know, St John's, alongside the rest of the North East Cambridge Area Action Plan, is currently undergoing a period of change. The Maurice Wilks building, which is shown on this site, having most recently been completed in 2018. Further to this existing context, St John's also benefits from the recent planning permission shown here, which was approved in July 2022 for the erection of a 5-storey and a 6-storey building, transport hub and associated landscaping and infrastructure, together with the demolition of the existing St John's House. In terms of the ambition for this project, the applicant intends to take this existing employment site, which includes a largely vacant building which is no longer fit for purpose, and transform the site to include a modern and flexible workspace to support a lively and inclusive community. With innovative labs and workspaces of tomorrow, a sustainable architecture that blends together with its green surroundings and promotes biodiversity, an active and transparent ground floor that visually and longer term physically interacts with the green spaces both within the site boundary and beyond. And this ambition enabled a clear vision to be established early for the scheme, to be part of the Science and Innovation District in this part of North East Cambridge, to promote biodiversity and outdoor amenity through green terraces and landscaped areas, to integrate sustainable solutions throughout the design, build and operation of the building, to include an active and transparent ground floor, and to provide flexible workspaces and breakout areas for employees and visitors to the site. The applicant appointed consultation specialist Canda to undertake community engagement from an early stage of the design process. We've attended and presented to the North East Cambridge Community Forum, distributed leaflets to approximately 2,500 local addresses, inviting them to attend a public consultation event at Orwell House and directing them to a dedicated consultation website. We've received feedback relating to a number of key areas and have been able to consider and address these alongside officer feedback through a series of PPA meetings we've held with officers. We've welcomed the opportunity to get involved with youth engagement with Year 5 pupils at Shirley Primary School, located to the south of the site, and enjoyed hearing their feedback on the scheme and change more widely in the area. Breakthrough Properties have committed to installing the 2 winning bench designs, which you can see here, on site following these sessions. We also had the pleasure of talking to Jane Costin herself at the sessions and fully support the work Office are undertaking on youth engagement within areas of change. The applicant team also understands that the future community of employees are an important consideration and committed at client brief stage to target Gold WELL accreditation, ensuring the well-being of employees is considered within the design. As you know, the site sits within the North East Cambridge Area Action Plan, and North East Cambridge is identified in the emerging local plan as the most sustainable location in Greater Cambridge. It has great accessibility, together with the benefit of an emerging infrastructure delivery plan focused on improving sustainable transport options to unlock the area for future growth. We met with officers at the County Council early to understand the mode share implications required to meet the trip budget for the North East Cambridge Area Action Plan. The applicant committed to ensure no net increase in parking provision on site to ensure no additional pressure is applied to the peak hour trips. Analysing the travel to work data available for the area has led to a strategy to discourage single occupancy car drivers, including some of the following measures: a reduction in car parking provision, which is now broadly equivalent to one space per 150 square metres, which reflects the North East Cambridge Area Action Plan targets rather than the adopted policy. The use of car booking systems means spaces have to be booked in advance and prioritise blue badge holders and those who live further away. Regular monitoring to enable a phased reduction if possible, replacing traditional parking bays with sustainable alternatives such as PEV spaces, additional cycle or pool car spaces. Within the site, the access strategy has sought to separate pedestrians and cyclists from vehicles and servicing and deliveries, the latter being located to the rear of the building, whilst sustainable transport is prioritised in terms of arrival to the building. The applicant also included high sustainability targets for the team within the client brief from the outset, challenging the team to adapt a whole life carbon approach to be fossil fuel free and focus on on-site renewables. Sustainability has been considered in the round, including the health and well-being, as previously mentioned. Biodiversity surveys were undertaken early to ensure an understanding of how and where net gain can be achieved, and circular economy principles underpin the strategy, acknowledging the limitations of the current building. Opportunities for water and climate resilience have also been incorporated into the design. Bureau Happold were appointed as experts in the field of understanding and delivering a net zero carbon strategy for the building, including both net zero in construction and net zero in operation. This has involved detailed cross-discipline work on the facade optimisation strategy to achieve performance KPIs, including those relating to heating and cooling demand, peak solar gain, and daylight autonomy. The energy concept sets out some of the measures to achieve the targets, and these reflect the direction set out within the NEC AAP. Early within the project, the team looked at the potential for the reuse of the existing building and have undertaken detailed modelling to understand the options available. The current building, unfortunately, was not designed with future flexibility in mind and therefore cannot be adapted to deliver the type of high-tech flexible office lab space required by the market. However, the proposed building is being designed with flexibility from the outset, allowing the building to flex and change as the needs of its occupants do in the future. As we talk through the architectural detail of the proposals, I'd like to start with the landscape plans. The applicant chose to work with the landscape architects appointed to work on the wider St John's site to ensure a truly integrated design and understanding of the context. The buffer of trees to the north is understood to be important not just to the site itself, but as part of the North East Cambridge Area Action Plan, and was retained with as many of the existing trees on site as possible. This starts to show how the Vitram building sits within the long-term landscape master plan for St John's, although it is worth noting that this master plan does not hold any planning weight, but has been useful in terms of looking at the site in its wider context. I'm joined by our project architects who will be able to answer questions on the scheme, but in brief, the approach has involved detailed discussions relating to the scale and massing of the building, which have reduced during the PPA process and in response to initial concerns raised by both officers and consultees, including Milton Parish Council. An open and active ground floor has remained a key aspiration, together with architectural detailing through a facade which relates both to the heritage of Cambridge and the research and development in the more immediate area. Finally, the importance of the landscaping flowing through the architectural design. As mentioned, the approach to massing is illustrated here. The massing having been split to create setbacks to reduce the scale, bulk and mass of the building. The technical roof being added as a biodiverse light element to the building. The creation of layers in the facade. And finally, the reduction in height following meeting with officers and initial feedback on the scheme. This slide just illustrates in more detail the changes made following consultation and meetings with the Council's Urban Design Officer. These changes resulted in a proposed Vitrum building that directly responds to the context, including both the Maurice Wilks building as built, together with the approved Dirac building, which would be the tallest building within the St John's Innovation Park. Again, this next slide shows a different section that illustrates the heights of the existing and approved buildings. For reference, the North East Cambridge Area Action Plan height is shown. We understand this is still subject to further consultation and examination and have worked hard with officers to ensure we understand this wider context. So the green line, you can see this green line. The changes over time have been undertaken whilst retaining the key concepts of a building that is able to retain and enhance the tree buffer along the A14, incorporates a biodiverse green roof, includes an entrance square to the building for pedestrians to enter and enjoy a space that's microclimate has been tested to ensure that this is the optimum location on the site for comfort. I'll note here that whilst the wastewater treatment works are operational, the outdoor spaces, including the terraces and square, will have a less active function and provide visual amenity until the odour source has been removed from the adjacent site following the DCO process. Again, this is following advice from the environmental health officers at the council. It was felt important to keep the visual and biodiversity value of these spaces and plan for a building that can be enjoyed longer term in more active ways once the odour is no longer an issue. In terms of biodiversity, the building and site design have sought to avoid direct loss of the woodland habitat. Following initial meetings with the council's ecologists, the building footprint and basement was adjusted to further reduce any impact. To mitigate the small amount of impact on the woodland, the retained area will be enhanced for increased biodiversity value. And finally, there is no requirement to offset to achieve the biodiversity net gains required on the site. This next slide starts to detail the biodiversity proposals, which include enhancement of the woodland habitat, additional native hedgerow planting, creation of biodiverse green roofs and planted terraces on balconies, habitat enhancement features such as bird and bat boxes, and native pollinator-friendly species within the planting scheme. And this just provides an illustration of the landscape areas, although we are looking again at some of these areas following useful feedback from the Quality Review Panel. Ground floor is shown here, pulling all of this together. And as mentioned, as we are at pre-application stage, some of these outdoor spaces are still being looked at by the landscape architects. Here we have an indicative image of the entrance to the building and what this could look like. We've added to the section, to the pack that you've all received, the existing building height, as I know this was a question raised, which is shown here by this pink line. You can see the basement level cycle parking, which will be designed as an inviting and secure place to both store bikes, shower and change, but also provides a bike fixing station, and oversized and specialist bike storage is also to be provided. Finally, this provides further details on the facade. We've included a series of elevations here, southwest, from the existing Innovation Centre. Here, from the southeast, so from the Jane Coston Bridge. Here from the northwest, showing the access to the basement, car parking area. and servicing and delivery zone. And finally, from the northeast, where planting will be used along the plant area to provide additional softening to the views across the A14. We've also included indicative views within the pack. And these start to demonstrate how the site will look. We've undertaken LVIA, and this will be included within the submission pack. Here you can see the view of the approved scheme for St John's, the Dirac building, what's referred to as Building 2, and our proposed Vitram building. And finally, this is the view from Cowley Road. Thank you for time, and we welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Emma. So the suggested area for member questions follow some of the key points for discussion. So talk about the principle of development, massing and height of development, the sustainability, the carbon budget, net zero in construction and net zero in operation, the environment, so the blue part, water and drainage, the green part, the landscaping and the biodiversity, and the transport, so looking at trip budget, transport mitigation and parking arrangements. So if we can have questions, please. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, talking of the massing, it's obviously it's helpful for you to have our feedback at this stage. It's quite substantial and it is higher. It's very nice to have the actual real-time model. That's much appreciated. I'm also interested in the kind of frontages. It's very grey. I'm thinking, for example, I think it was the Children's Hospital that we did recently, where there were sort of quite colourful facades that I think the problem is obviously you're building offices. Offices are, they have a function. But I suppose I'd like to hope that the form on the outside might perhaps be a little more engaging, I think, without prejudice to any later application. But I know it's useful for you to have our feedback. And again, I'm particularly interested in how it relates to the current height of the building. Because obviously it is a view from a busy road. I appreciate that's quite transitory, but it's I think particularly on that corner, some of those visuals, it's certainly visible, I think. Like, I'm trying to be as diplomatic as I can, Chair.
I think there was a question there. If you'd like to answer that.
If I may sort of respond, in terms of massing, I think what we did was look very carefully on how we could accommodate what we needed on site for the efficiency of the site. A lot of the massing, it comes from the need to have an increased floor-to-floor height because of the use. One of the reasons why the current building is not sustainable is that it was built just for offices. It wasn't allowing for alternative uses, whereas this, it's got a higher floor-to-floor. It's about 4.5 meters floor-to-floor to allow for at least a meter ceiling void. Going into quite a lot of technical detail, but essentially gives you or gives us the opportunity to create a building that is sustainable into the long-term future for alternative use. That then has an impact on its massing. It has a volume, it has a height. But we look very closely on the height to ensure that while it's actually at quite a pivotal position on that site, in a way, it's the end of Cowley Road before it turns into the Innovation Park. It's also where cyclists, pedestrians come from Milton. It's actually heralding an arrival point. And we felt it was important to do so. But to mitigate that, we also wanted to create more of a human scale by stepping down. And so we put a lot of work to it. And in response to the colour of the elevation, often it's the way we draw things as well. We're still looking at materials, but we're looking for materials that are in keeping with the vernacular of Cambridge. So among the bricks that we're looking at, because the ground floor, where we have the colonnade, will be, our idea is to have it in bricks. And so we're looking at Cambridge style buff brick and looking, not just the even coloured ones, but, pick up ones that actually pick up the sort of the clay in it as well. So it hopefully will not be grey.
So, there you have it, massing equals sustainability. Councillor Thornborough.
I'd like to know, this may be the next section, but I'm interested in, you talked about whole life costing, and I'd like to know what the structural form is and whether that actually can be dismantled at the end of its building life, or we're talking about adaptability now, and hopefully this will never need to be rebuilt and it will be adaptable forever going forward. So I'm interested in that. And also from the section, it looked like the bike store is not it's in the lower basement, which I think is really regrettable. It's so low. But the lower basement seemed to have a much higher floor to ceiling than the basement where the cars were. So why does the bike park have such a high floor to ceiling? I don't know if it's plant.
So, if I may, I'll pick up on the second point first. So, the sections shown is actually one of the largest areas of the basement parking for the cycle parking. Our initial scheme only had a single basement, which combined both the cycle parking and the car parking. But actually, the basement footprint had a greater impact on the existing woodland and the existing trees. So the basement was brought in to ensure that the impact on the existing biodiversity was minimised. And that then led to a decision to be made on what happens to that cycle storage, making sure that actually for the cyclists, they have no conflict with the cars coming into the basement area. And so a number of options were looked at, and actually by having the basement solely for biking, they've got 2 lifts that access that basement direct down to the basement parking. It can be designed as a really lovely area for the cyclists to arrive to. The height is because when we reduce the height of the building, in order to do that, some of the plant has now moved down to that basement area, and so some of that plant requires a greater height in that area.
Shall I pick up on the life cycle? I mean, I think we have looked at the life cycle costing. I haven't got all the facts and figures with me here, but in essence, the structure we're looking at is concrete with we've been looking at quite a lot of recycled material in it as well. We have looked at, I mean, I think in carrying this out, we wanted to be sure that, for instance, like the bricks, yes, it can be reused. What we're also doing in the demolition of the existing, we're also looking for recycling and reuse as much as we can, even if it's just in the construction stage. But with the existing building, we're looking at bricks, as I said, we've got the concrete structure, but the concrete slab, we're looking at the makeup of it. I think what's it called? It's basically got the metal formers to make it a lot thinner. And then in terms of the glass, we've minimized the glass as far as possible. We've been doing a lot of sort of physics on it to look at percentage to maximize the light, daylight in, but but not increase the sort of thermal gain.
No, that's a lot of embodied carbon in situ concrete, even if you're using salvaged material. And it's just something we're encouraging is considering the materials in use. And there are some really good innovative ways of construction, and it's something I'm particularly interested in. So I was just asking a question. It doesn't change the design, and it's something that's not in our current policies, but it's something we're interested in. Thanks.
So look, we haven't got much time. So I've got 3 people wanting to ask the question. I've got 4 people wanting to ask questions. I've got 5 people. That's going to be an impossibility. So I think what we'll do is we'll record the questions. We've got fantastic typists both side here, so with all their other professional skills. Let's get those questions recorded while we can, and then we'll take the first one that's in the queue, which is Councillor John Williams. So if we'll wait for you, Councillor Williams. So Councillor Bradman, can we hear your question, please, just in case we're running out of time? Can you put your
I wanted to ask a number of questions, but I am concerned about height. Thank you for that, and I'm sure others will raise that. But I wanted to ask about the transport plan, which was the 4th item you were raising. I wanted to ask, since you're more than doubling the working space on the site, but you're endeavouring to keep parking to no more than one space per 150 square metres. I just wanted to ask, what is your plan for transport to work? Where are your employees hoping to park? And what will you do to avoid displacement parking elsewhere in the vicinity and in the village of Milton?
Councillor Richard Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question follows on actually from a question that Councillor Thornborough asked, and that's about the lift access to the cycle park. I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about why it needs to be lift access, because I would imagine that's something of a deterrent to actually using the cycle park, because it will involve some delay as you're waiting for lifts to go up and down. So if you could say why that couldn't be more freely accessed, that would be helpful.
Councillor Richard Stobart, please.
Thank you, Chair. So my question may be peripheral to this main thrust, but in the structure of the building, I was interested in really how flexible those working spaces are. So, in kind of R&D, advanced development environments, there's this need to change quickly and to adapt to new project types, so some might be more mechanically biased, heavier lifting needed, bigger spaces, some may be more delicate, require better environmental controls. And the need often is to change quickly, within a matter of weeks sometimes. So how flexible is it, and how is the flexibility being engineered? Are there, for example, business use cases that you've used to try and determine what that degree of flexibility is? And are there limits? And the kind of supplementary is, what are the service implications? I mean, you get extremes where you need to supply, multiple gases, for certain types of work, and others more straightforward. So I wondered how you'd engineer, or how you plan to engineer that into the structure of the building, what the implications might be for the layout of the building as you put those services in. So, Chair, that's my question in brief.
Thank you for that. And were you thinking about wet labs within that bundle?
Also, yes, inevitably wet labs in the Cambridge environment.
Sort of quite challenging, isn't it? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Councillor Williams, so what we're going to do now is you're going to ask your question and you're going to get the answer to it. And then there will be written answers to all the other questions that you've asked. If there's any bidders after that, we'll ask them and get them recorded. Is that okay? So, Councillor Williams, can you
Yeah, thank you very much. One of my questions has just been put about services and also about the grid capacity as well. My other question was also to do with facilitating this building multiple uses. What arrangements are there for service vehicles such as vans and HGVs to access the building and to separate them from a car and cyclist?
Get the answer to this question now, and then when they've finished, I'll pick up any other questions that members want recorded, and we'll get those answers in writing. Okay. And if you think after the meeting, you can do the same, submit them to Philippa, please. Thank you.
I'll take the question on the servicing. We separated, I think there was a plan for the transport strategy that showed the different colour areas going in. And we've actually have car parking coming in and servicing on the same road, but the car parking turns right and goes down the ramp into the basement first, whereas the services go straight on. We've done tracking studies to show that we can actually turn a sort of HGV round there, and we've got 2 docking bays for the services. But we've also looked into the future because we believe that, you know, while now we use big vehicles, we might use transit vans, but potentially in the future we might have cargo cycles. So we have cargo cycle parking areas that is clear and differentiated from where the vans would go. So we've allowed for all of that. But just to go a touch a bit further in terms of servicing, we've also allowed for the fact that, and it might touch a bit on what Councillor Richard Stoddart asked, in terms of servicing provision of sort of pads for gas cylinders and things in the future, should that be required.
It's just also about electricity grid capacity and water resource capacity as well.
So our engineers have been working on that and have done some calculations and believe that that will meet the grid capacity. Yeah, it has sufficient capacity.
We've made an application to the distribution network operator, UKPN. There's some work to do at the Milton Primary Substation, but they can provide the supply to support the lab use at 3.8 MVA, I think it is. So we've just received an updated quote from them, which we'll be processing.
The question on water.
Capacities for water at the moment, but early indications to see that there isn't an issue with the distribution to the site or the supply.
So is there going to be a net increase in water consumption on the building?
Yeah, due to the site, the size of the building. Yeah.
Time for one more, and you were next, Councillor Badmans. If you want to ask your favourite question.
Thank you. I just wanted to check with you which side of that maquette is actually facing the Jane Coston Bridge, and which side? Is it the side new? Okay.
Sorry, getting used to that.
So the side with the square cut out is the side that's facing the Jane Coston Bridge?
Yes, so the entry, the sort of starting point to the Jane Coston Bridge comes up here and gradually ramps up. So
Okay,
as you approach, you see the opening of that square.
Thank you. And the footprint has changed a number of times, has it not, over the evolution of the idea? It was originally going to be 2 separate blocks, and now it's 1. And also I noticed that the very highest block is actually 7 stories, including plant, but I'm not sure if that's still correct.
Just to say that this was modelled before we reduced the height, it took quite a lot of time. We didn't have time to remodel another one. The purpose of this was just to show how we've looked at and studied the elevation. But we have taken off that block, so we've reduced it by 1-story height.
So the total height now is?
The total height now is
27.
27.
Is
I would also say, we took, as mentioned in the presentation, some height off the floor-to-floor heights. I think we went down from 4.4 to 4.2, and we're really at the, speaking to your point, Councillor Stobbart, the limits of flexibility, trying to avoid, or make sure that this building lasts for the future. It's flexible in terms of its operation, in terms of its use. So we're really at that limit at 4.2 for a functional, wet lab building.
I gave some false information earlier when I said 4.5, it's 4.2 because we have reduced it.
Thank you. Are there any more questions we want recorded? So, Councillor Gawthorpe, did you have a question?
I'm happy to have mine recorded, except there is one thing I'm concerned about at the back of the building, because I don't quite understand. I'd quite like to see the slide again.
Okay. Councillor Thornborough.
I'd like to know, you talked about water resilience. I'd like to know how much water the current building uses and how much you're anticipating, because we are trying to encourage house water use in dwellings to go down to 80 litres, and really we'd like commercial buildings to be like 30 litres per person per day. So this is currently a commercial building, and if it becomes life science, we don't know how much water life sciences uses, as maybe.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the applicants for your very helpful answers, actually. I just want to reiterate the cycle parking being underneath the car parking is a issue in terms of LTM 120 and priorities and the lift access. The grey water recycling you mentioned is very welcome. It concerns me. We've had very few applications that seem to pick up on this. I know the tech is developing, and I certainly think it's worth considering, given that lab use will increase your water. I think from a sustainability point of view, seeing as much as possible offset, so your toilets and all those things that could be used would be something many members would note. And obviously, I think you touched on cargo bikes for deliveries. I just want to make sure as well, cargo bikes, adapted bikes, as the chair knows, I like to raise this. But also whether you're looking at things like car shares and car clubs, so that if you have parking, there is a priority that if people do need a car once in a while, because again, it's that modal shift of having it available. So I'd be grateful if you might consider that. Thank you.
quick one, and it's just, I'm sure you're aware that the water table in this area is very high, which had to be taken into account with the Cambridge North Station development. So could I, in your plans for drainage and surface water drainage, please could you consider very seriously the use of permeable paving, which reduces the impact of sudden downpours of rain on the surrounding area. And since you've got a basement, you're going to be concerned not to cause any risk to that.
Councillor Stober, and I'm going to have to go to Gawthorpe, but then I think I'm finishing. Okay, so.
Thank you, Chair. So two brief things. I think it's coming up, but some more detail around the energy management in the building. That would be great to know about. I was thinking, you've got the lovely screen of trees between the building and the A14. It is quite a noisy stretch because, you know, the road is contained within the cutting. And I wondered about noise management for those quiet offices, how that will work out.
Okay, for the recording. Firstly, cooling system, more on that, please. Is there any slope on site? And that fits in with the groundwater management and water table. Landscapes, so you're still looking at that. I would like more on that. You say that the building does rely on the wastewater treatment moving now in order for people to use the public space. So I'd really like more on that. The roof gardens and the roof planting. Well, is this open to office workers? Yeah, I think that covers it. Thank you.
We'll ask you to send answers in response to those questions post-meeting. So thank you very much. Could I please remind members that the next Joint Development Control meeting is taking place on Wednesday the 15th of February 2023. If members are unable to attend this meeting, please could they liaise with their alternates to ensure that the meeting is quorate and can go ahead. The committee manager will also be circulating alternative dates for the committee meetings in December and February 2024, following member discussion at the December meeting. Please could you respond to their email promptly. Thank you. That now concludes the Joint Development Control Committee meeting. Please could I ask members to, well, I'm not going to do that because we're coming back. Please could the meeting producer end the live stream and confirm when the live stream